Pro wrestling talk from the four corners of parts unknown. This is That Wrestling Podcast.
Okay, it's time for a That Wrestling Podcast Extra. It's Brian here hosting the show today. I am thrilled to welcome a special guest with me. I've been following this person's writing for a long time. He covers the Sacramento Kings for The Athletic, and prior to that with the Sacramento Bee. And I was excited when a few months back, he started a new wrestling podcast. It's called Yes, I'm Watching Wrestling. Let's welcome Jason Jones. Jason, thank you for the time. How are you?
I'm doing good, just enjoying the off season as much as I possibly can, trying to sneak a little vacation in here and there. It's a different type of off season because everything started later than normal, and then the season's going to start at the regular time. So usually I'll have with the Kings, like from mid-April. I'll have like a nice little break before we got to worry about the draft. This year, it's like, okay, wow, the season just ended. Oh yeah, the draft. You got 6 weeks now till the lottery, and so which isn't too normal. But the fact that the lottery is is in June, the draft is late July. It's just it throws your entire kind of just planning and rhythm off.
I believe it. Yeah, you haven't had to experience a long Kings playoff run, so you have that going for you as far as your time off, I suppose. So
yeah, I mean, I've never had to cancel any off-season plans because the Kings have made a surprise run in the postseason.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll get into that a little bit later. I wanted to start off. We start off all of our shows with a segment that we call "What Are You Wearing?" What are you wearing? What are you wearing? What are you wearing today? What are you wearing? What are you wearing? What are you wearing today? We always wear a wrestling shirt to start off each podcast, and it looks like you got one that you're representing for us tonight. What do you got?
I got the Kevin Owens fight.
Beautiful.
I've got a crazy collection of shirts. I just grabbed one of them. I'm like, which one is it going to be today? And I haven't worn this one probably in forever. So, but yeah, I've got a ton of shirts, and now my son is old enough to go through my shirts and take the ones he wants to wear. I tried to buy him his own. He'll be like, Yeah, he's 12 and he's really big into old matches.
Okay. Yeah.
So he'll go back 7-8 years, and I've got shirts from 7 and 8 years ago. He'll be like, "Oh, look what I found!" And I see him going to school in my Suplex City shirt or something.
Oh my God.
He just thinks it's the coolest thing. I have all these shirts that he can take.
That's awesome. Do you have a personal favorite?
I mean, I think probably one of my top ones would be my Hot Rod shirt.
Yeah, classic.
Because it took me forever to find that shirt. And when it finally became available, I got to get the Roddy Piper shirt. So I mean, that's probably right at the top of the list. That one. I like my Bray Wyatt, my Fiend shirt, because it's one of those all over, shirts. I've got a bunch of them. I mean, I didn't like Roman Reigns stuff until he became a heel. So I didn't get any Roman Reigns stuff until then. I mean, I've got Ric Flair. I've got an old Ken Anderson t-shirt.
Oh, wow.
I can't find, but I mean, from his TNA Impact days, I've got some stuff from there. I just have shirts from everywhere. A lot of the guys I have, some of them aren't even wrestling anymore. Maybe my all-time favorite shirt was my Damian Sandow, "I think, therefore I'm greater than you" shirt.
That's classic. He was amazing. Amazing.
I've got those, and a lot of times I'll just wear the shirts to Kings practices, and that's when I start finding out how many players watch wrestling.
Yeah,
so there's I think for the Kings, Spencer Hawes and John Brockman were the two biggest fans.
Okay. Yep. Remember those guys from a couple of years back now.
Yeah. So yeah, they I think
fun.
There was a pay-per-view. I forget which one it was in Sacramento, and I went to the pay-per-view, got the shirt, and came to practice a couple of days later. They're like, "Oh my God, you got to go!"
Yeah,
became a completely different conversation. And another Kings assistant coach, Elston Turner, was a big wrestling guy, and one of my favorite people from the Kings, Daryl Arata. He's with the Warriors now, but he was in their PR department. Huge wrestling fan, way back in the day, because we'd be working. he would record the pay-per-views on then burn them to DVDs.
Oh my God.
Pre WWE Network days, and
Right.
we went to a few shows, when they'd be in Sacramento. So yeah, I find all even when my Raider coverage days, I'd find the wrestling fans. Former running back Lamont Jordan was a huge wrestling fan, big fan, and one of our kind of like tougher wrestling talks was I saw him. He was the first guy I ran into in training camp after the Chris Benoit situation.
Okay.
And the first thing he said to me, man, you see that Benoit stuff? So
so he knows.
All the wrestling fans and wherever I cover always find me.
Well, and that's part of that ties into just the name of your podcast. Yes, I'm watching wrestling, because having that introduction with friends, or in your case, people that you're covering, isn't always the easiest. So if you're sporting a shirt, that it gives that instant recognition of, okay, this guy, unless you're wearing it for just like retro vintage style, this guy knows, what's going on in the wrestling world.
And even how I came up with that title was because the wrestling fans defended me. So that was just a crazy day. I'm at the 2017 NBA Finals, and the Warriors are just like destroying the Cavs. Like there's no way they're going to win this game. And it was a Sunday, so there's a pay-per-view, and the match was it was Neville versus Austin Aries.
Okay, correct.
So I'm watching that. And like, I don't know who the guy was, but he's sitting in the back, and he like takes a picture of me and tweets it and says, hey, this guy should get his credential revoked. He's watching wrestling during the game. I'm like, yes, I am watching wrestling. Number one. Number two, who are you? And then like all these wrestling fans started attacking that guy. Once I kind of owned up, that's me. And then Matt Hardy, got a hold of it. He tweeted the guy and tweeted me like, hey, I got you. And, and then Triple H tweeted me to let me know he supported me, watching wrestling instead of watching the game. So that was like a fun couple of days between, Matt Hardy, everyone like telling me, hey, we got you on this.
Yeah, that's a great story. I'm so glad you shared it. I know you shared it on your podcast too. Real quick on that too, did the person who took that picture, did they physically confront you about that too, or was he just working on the down low and posted it trying to out you?
He was just it was weird because he was sitting behind me but above me. So he just took the picture, never said anything.
Wow. Okay. So that's so shady. Yeah.
Yeah. And then when it kind of got out and all that was happening and people started jumping on him, I went to the next game. He apologized. He was just so sorry. He was like, man, I didn't think it was going to, I wasn't really trying to get your credential revoked. He said I was trying to make a joke, but he learned that day the wrestling fans weren't going to let him slander me.
Lessons learned.
I mean, if I've got all the way up to Triple H telling him that it's okay, he was like, wow, I had no idea wrestling fans would, come at me like that. I mean, people were like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, why weren't you watching the game? That's creepy. You're taking pictures of people.
Right.
And I'm like, I wasn't watching anything crazy. Like the Warriors were like 30. I mean, there was nothing to watch anymore.
Yeah, game's over at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, the game is over. Now you're thinking about what do I want to write about later.
Right.
And in the meanwhile, let me get my mind off of this terrible game and check out the pay-per-view.
Well, it's all parlayed into your podcast now, and continue to have your writing success. Before I forget, I need to show my shirt. So I am wearing my Mr. Perfect kind of newspaper print style Kurt Hennig shirt. So that is what I'm sporting for tonight.
Okay. See, I don't have a perfect shirt and I need one.
Yeah. This was a good buy. This was me and the boys did, I think, we did like a prediction pool for who would win the Royal Rumbles. And I won. I think I had Bianca. We just do random pulls, and I had Bianca winning the women's one. So the other three guys had to get me shirts, and I couldn't pass this one up. So
okay.
One of my newer ones in my collection.
Okay.
Jason, how did you get into wrestling? When did you become a fan? Like, how did it all start for you?
I mean, I remember the day it started for me. I was a kid and I was sick. So I was at home and my mom didn't take me to church that day. So I was at home sick and she just turned the TV on and I saw the Killer Bees. And I didn't know what I was watching, but I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And then I had to be like second grade, maybe second grade, really young. Yeah. But that's what got me into it. And then from there, I just kept going with it. But that was like my very first time. And those were, B. Brian Blair, Jumpin' Jim Brunzell were the first two wrestlers I ever saw. And I was like, are they brothers? Like, what is this?
Right. And then I got the matching tights, the Killer Bees, the black and gold. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you start seeing the British Bulldog. I saw the tag teams first, the Hart Foundation.
Yeah.
Being a kid trying to figure out now, is Bret Hart like really related to Neidhart or why is his name Neidhart? Like, I was like, there's no way in the world his name just happened to be Neidhart and his name is Hart, So as a kid, you're just trying to figure all that out. And, obviously you get a little older, you go through the whole, hey, it's fake thing. And I'm like, leave me alone.
Yeah.
But that's when it started. And then from there, I just never stopped watching and, I thought I would kind of outgrow it. And I thought, well, maybe once I get to college, it won't be as cool anymore. And then, the NWO happens before I get to college and the Montreal Screwjob, all of once the lines got really blurred, I was like, oh, wow, this is really, really crazy. I think I even told the story on my podcast about how I get to college as a freshman in 1996. And I'm kind of nervous about, hey, is anyone gonna be watching this anymore? You've got like the community TV, is anyone watching wrestling? We're like at a barbecue. And then someone said, hey, excuse me, anybody mind if I turn the TV on and see who joins the NWO next? I was like, it's not just me. And everyone's like, oh yeah, so
yeah.
I've discovered more people watch wrestling than want to admit it sometimes. And they all,
that's true.
And they'll tell me, hey, oh yeah, so you watched it, or they'll see a shirt on Instagram, and where'd you get that shirt? And so it's kind of kept me going. And now 30 plus years at this point. So
yeah, you and I were the same age. I'm 42 as well. So a lot of the things you were saying, very similar. Did you have brothers and sisters? Like, did your family watch with you growing up? I mean, you touched on that, hey, is this fake? And I had those same conversations. And for me, my family never, watched it with me or anything like that. It was just something that I latched onto. Was that sort of the case with you?
Yeah, because I have a younger sister, but my younger brother who got into wrestling was 12 years younger than me. So by the time he shows up, I'm already fully into it. And that became kind of tricky because he's watching with me when he's little. And he had this phase where he wanted to jump off his tables.
Okay. Of course,
so it scared my mom because, but he would always jump on me like he's watching wrestling. He'd always jump on me, but to him, it was the coolest thing to climb on things and jump. And she'd be like, you can't watch this around him. He's going to hurt himself. But he really enjoyed it. He enjoyed at that point. He was born in 1990. So like when the Ultimate Warrior, he'd see that was like the coolest thing to him.
Yeah.
He'd just see this colorful character running back and forth. So he'd see that and just start running. So my mom was always afraid me watching wrestling was going to get him hurt, but no, it didn't happen. And, I think elementary school had some friends who watched it too. I remember I would take like cardboard and make a belt. And we'd go to school at recess and have like tournaments, and we'd put each other in holds and try to hurt each other, But yeah, for me, it was kind of just what I did. And as I got older, have a girlfriend. You really watching this? I'm like, yeah, get married. Are you really watching this? And get divorced. Are you really still watching? Everyone's always like, and I've got some crazy, just, are you watching a wrestling story that I have, probably the craziest one was right when TNA first, gets started on television. I'm watching, it would come on after Raw. So it was coming on like 11:30. And one night I'm sitting with my ex-wife and I'm saying, hey, do you mind if I watch TNA? She goes, why do you want to watch that? I said, hey, wrestling's off, but I still want to watch a little bit more. And she's like, what? I said, I want to watch TNA. She looks at me and goes, if you insist on watching porn, go for it. that I don't understand. And I'm like, not T and A,
Right.
T and A. And she was like, oh, but yeah, because she was just like, I was like, why are you so angry? I think I told her I watch it every week. And she's like, you do what?
We're not connecting here. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, I watch TNA every Monday night. She's like, you watch it every Monday. I said, yeah, after wrestling goes off. So she's like, oh my God, you watch wrestling and then you watch WWE and then you watch TNA. I was like, yeah, it's like, yeah.
Oh my
And
God.
so, yeah, that's one of my funnier, what are you talking about stories? And then she's like, oh, that's what you're talking about. Just say wrestling next time. I was confused.
Yeah. Well, that's that goes back to Jeff Jarrett and founder and the name and just exactly everybody probably just had that head scratching. Wait, what is this that you're watching?
Yeah.
It's wrestling.
Total
Okay.
nonstop action. She's like,
Right.
yeah, whatever.
Yeah, that's what it is. Right. Oh
Mm.
my God. Those are great. Who are some of your like favorites? Either some more wrestlers that you kind of latched onto growing up. I mean, you can say some today as well. And favorite matches, favorite memories of that.
Growing up, I was a big Macho Man fan.
Yeah.
Big fan. I was like the contrarian kid. I was never a Hogan fan. So once it was Hogan against the Macho Man, I was Macho Man all the way. I was like, I'm not going with Hulk Hogan. You know, I was a big Macho Man fan. I was a big fan of Diesel as a kid.
Oh, sure. Yep.
You know, Diesel and Razor Ramon. And because I was taking Spanish at school, we had to pick a Spanish name. I was Ramon. You know, so you know, I was I didn't know there was a clique, but at that point, but I was a big fan of them. And then I was a big, I was a big fan of Doom.
Oh yes, Ron Simmons, Butch Reed.
Yeah, I was a big fan of them as a tag team. And then as I got older, I kind of, I was still a, Nash and Hall guy.
Yeah.
And then obviously Stone Cold and The Rock. Probably my favorite wrestler from that era was Rob Van Dam.
Yeah.
I was a big Rob Van Dam fan. I used to stay up till about 2-3 in the morning back in the day to watch ECW just to watch him. I was a big Rob Van Dam fan, became a big CM Punk fan. So yeah, I mean, then match wise, there's a lot of different matches. Depends. I guess it kind of depends what we're talking. This is probably some of those Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart matches, like the WrestleMania matches. Still the Iron Man match is still one of my favorites. Just the
classic.
To be able to go an hour, just when they even announced, I'm like, they can't do that, an hour.
Right.
That was, that's definitely one of my all-time favorites. CM Punk hopping the rails with the belt, because like, is he leaving? That was
Money in the Bank. Yeah.
That the pipe bomb promo, that anything that kind of blurred the lines, I love it. I was like that. To me, CM Punk might be one of my top 2-3 favorites of all time. So I mean, just that whole that's that. I just love CM Punk. Even though I was a fan of The Rock, I hated the way that they made Punk drop the belt to a part-time wrestler.
Yeah,
and that disgusted me to no end.
Yeah. Right. Punk had that super long title reign of like 400 some odd days, and yeah, that was the setup that they were going for, the rematch of Rock and Cena at the following WrestleMania. And I'm like, this doesn't have to be for the championship. You can just have them do their rematch and life goes on. But they didn't see it that way. So
that was that one was just like, oh, that, but yeah, I mean, there's a ton of matches that I look back, probably the most recent was the Sasha Bianca main event was one of the best matches I've seen in a long time.
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah. That stole the show at me.
Yeah, that was one of the best matches I've seen. When you talk about, just the physicality, the storytelling, the real life emotion you could see, and just everything about it, I really enjoyed it. So I mean, I've seen a ton of matches. I probably could pick 20 that I like at this point.
Jason, you and I talked briefly off the air about our kids, and I have two girls, ages 4 and 2. They haven't gotten into wrestling yet, maybe a little young. They catch me watching it, and my 4-year-old like understands the physicality. Like she'll see somebody get slammed and go, ooh, so she gets that, but she doesn't get it yet. And I'm not pushing it on them. And your kids are a little bit older. I'd love to know kind of how you got them into it, and was it something they gravitated toward right away? You mentioned on your pod a little bit ago about your son being sad about Braun being released. So it sounds like they're pretty into it now. And I'd love to get some fatherly advice on how that worked out for you and your kids, so I can take some lessons for my girls.
Yeah, my oldest cried when I had to tell him that Braun Strowman was not coming back.
Right.
Because he's 12 and he gets mad when I turn on AEW and he wants to call John Moxley. Like, that's Dean Ambrose. I don't care what you say.
He knows what it was. Yeah.
And I'm like, well, he doesn't want to be Dean Ambrose anymore. He's like, I don't care. I'm calling him Dean Ambrose. And actually, the way I got my oldest into wrestling was it was different, because he's on the autism spectrum, and I was trying to find him messages that would be encouraging. And so I started buying him John Cena shirts.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Never give up, and then that just morphed into him loving wrestling. And then the other just kind of followed suit, and they'll have our, like pay-per-view Sunday. It's like our time, and and we talk about all the shows, and then they'll get into arguments, like the big argument the last big wrestling argument with the Royal Rumble.
Oh, okay.
The youngest is 7. He kept saying Edge is going to win. He was only saying Edge was going to win because he wanted to go get to whatever his brother said. He was going to go do the opposite.
Okay. Yeah.
He was like Edge is going to win. Then they asked me. I said, I think Edge is going to win. My oldest is like, no. I'm like, I think Edge might win. Now I'm thinking, storyline, how they're going to sell this and all that, and so that they kind of just gravitated to it after that. And now, like, my oldest is just mad because all his favorites are disappearing. Like Daniel Bryan is, not on there right now.
Right.
And it's like, he's like, where's Daniel Bryan? And, it's like, well, where's Braun Strowman? So he was happy when he saw Samoa Joe end up on NXT.
Yep. Right.
He was happy to see that. So he was like, I thought Samoa Joe got released, and he'll ask me, what is Triple H doing? Why did Stephanie let him go? Why couldn't they keep him? Why didn't they let Dean Ambrose keep his name? And I was like, trust me, he did not want to stay Dean Ambrose.
Yeah. These are such great questions from your son, though.
Yeah. And then
he's so into it.
I've met a lot of wrestlers. So I know for his birthday a few years ago, I had a connection at the radio station. He got to meet Cesaro and Sasha Banks.
Awesome.
And, he might have been about 8, 9. And he saw Sasha. He was like, just like, and then he couldn't be in, because I'm about 6'2". So at that age, whenever he saw someone bigger than me, he'd be like, oh, wow. So Cesaro being taller than me, he was like, oh, my. Then I met Daniel Bryan. I met him at the gym in Vegas once. This was during the whole post, Nexus. He was gone phase.
Oh wow, yeah, what a time.
And then I ran into, as they were known at the time, the Revival at the gym in Bakersfield, California. They had a show in Bakersfield, and I was at my girlfriend's place working out at the gym, and I was like, they look pretty big to be in here. But, like I said, I'm taller than most people. So I'm like, but they look real short.
Didn't expect it.
I was, and I always forget, I'm not like 5'7", so I'm going to be taller than, then I'm like, oh, that is them and they're working out. Right. So after they were done, I kind of said, hey, just, fan of your work, and then it was funny because I was saying, I hope you guys can, I said, can kind of get a better push. I'm like, they're not really doing anything with you. He says, they tell me, trust me, or trust us. Hopefully we won't be working there much longer. So they were saying,
crazy.
They were saying, and then that might have been before they did that might have been after the whole, deal with Randy Orton. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But they were saying, they were telling me, just a guy they met at the gym, they didn't want to be in the company anymore. So I'm like, oh yeah, they're not happy. I tell them I'm a sports writer, and I'm like, I could have easily run and been like, hey, They didn't care. They wanted out.
Right.
So I'm happy for them that they get to be out, doing what they're doing.
Those are some really fun interactions, man. I appreciate you sharing those.
Yeah, and I've got other ones, being in, probably one other crazy one before we move on. The Summer League in Las Vegas. For a couple of years, whenever we were in Summer League, they'd have a show in Vegas, and we're at a casino. We're actually at the Palms, and Matt Bloom walks through with Jack Swagger. And I've got somebody who's a friend of a friend who's with us knows I have a wrestling shirt on. I have the Stone Cold What shirt on that night. And we're just, throwing back drinks, having a good time. And somebody goes, aren't those two guys wrestlers? I'm like, yeah, but I'm just chilling. And this other guy goes, I'm going to make sure they meet you. I'm like, I don't need to meet them. And he chases after them. He goes, Jason, don't be afraid. They're just people. And chases them through the casino.
Oh, my God.
I'm like, dude, stop. They're going to think I'm crazy.
Right.
Like, I cannot go chase them.
Yeah. There's a line. You don't want to be bothering them.
I'm like they're just walking through the casino. This wasn't like hey, we're in close contact. Like I was nowhere near them. I only noticed them because they're, rather large individuals.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially you, who in your profession, you're around celebrities, professional athletes every day. I'm sure you've been around LeBron and Curry and everybody. So it's not like you're getting starstruck, I would imagine. Like, it's just, oh, that's cool. Like you said, you were just going about your time.
And I guess he figured my reluctance to go chase them down was me being afraid to meet them. So he told me, Jason, they're just people. I'm like, it's okay. I don't have to go meet them right now.
No.
So, I've had some fun wrestling interactions.
Wow. All right. Well, shifting to something a little more serious. One thing I've appreciated from listening to your podcast is your discussions you've had on the topic of race in wrestling, like whether that's things happening today, like you touched on the Drake Wirtz incident and things like that, or like the portrayal of Black wrestlers, how in the past in modern wrestling, it hasn't been always positive. I think that's important to talk about. I'm glad to hear you discuss it. My question is, like, has there ever been maybe a storyline or an incident that touched on race and racism that ever made you contemplate, like, why am I being a wrestling fan right now? Like, what is this?
I mean, I don't know how many have they had. I mean,
yeah, right.
I mean, they're, you look back at some of them, you go, like, was that really funny? Like, why did I like, did I like that? Am I uncomfortable? Like, I look back at the whole idea, even going back to a kid, the whole Akeem thing. It's like,
right.
I'm like, that wouldn't fly in 2021.
God, no, absolutely not.
And even though I rest in peace to Shad Gaspard, but whole idea of their crime time, I'm like, are you serious? Why do you gotta be criminals?
Right.
And like, yo, they're going to go steal the titles, and it's like, are you serious? It's like, can we get, and then, it's just like some of this is like the over the top, just like craziness with it, like. The Nation of Domination. I like the Nation of Domination, but you could tell they were like kind of pushing the envelope of, you guys are going to be Black extremists. It's like, and all those guys in their own rights had great careers, but it was like, okay, I see what you're doing, Vince. And then even when they I felt bad for the New Day when they first came out. I mean, you're going to turn them into like the Baptist preachers.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this is the most creative thing you can do with Kofi Kingston, make him a preacher. I'm like, he was just Jamaican like a couple of years ago. Now he's a Baptist preacher. I mean, you see some of that, you kind of, I know I had a couple of story ideas even for The Athletic, and one of the editors was like, I hate wrestling. I hate it. The way they portrayed some of the Black wrestlers, I just hate it. And then as I watch a lot of documentaries and you see some of the stories some of those guys dealt with, it's like you hear some of the stories that Teddy Long went through, and I just like, wow, but it's just it can be. There have been moments I look back now, like when Kamala passed, you go, wow, he spent his whole career playing a quote savage. It's like, but then I also realized too in pro wrestling, it wasn't just the Black wrestlers. I mean, it happened with the Asian wrestlers and how they were kind of
yeah.
pigeonholed into this evil kind of shiesty caricature. They made Tito Santana become a matador. I mean, there was just, it seemed like there was always just these, you go through like, are we really doing this? But a lot of, I think some of it has had to have changed because of this, time and, just awareness that, you don't do certain things anymore. But yeah, I mean, there have been times where people even say, how dare you even watch that stuff?
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, I think, especially as a kid, you don't kind of pick up on some of those things. I look back as I'm older and go, wow, that was pretty messed up.
Yeah.
And just kind of almost like the insulting of your intelligence, like Harlem Heat, they don't even sound like they're from Harlem.
Right.
They sound like they're from Texas.
Right.
But it's just like, hey, they're black. They can be from Harlem.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if you watch the WWE biography with Booker T and that whole incident in Sturgis and how he and his brother basically were like, you guys got to get out of here.
Yeah.
So I mean, there have been moments where I've been like, I don't know, some of the veil, even that whole angle with Booker T and Triple H they had.
Yeah, that was a tough one.
That one was tough for me because I was like, I like Booker T and I like Triple H, but that was probably the last time where I felt really like, why am I doing this? The whole people like you don't get to, it's like, come on, are we really doing this?
Yeah.
And even though you understand it's a work, and maybe the fact that it made me feel that way is a proof that they were doing a good job.
Yeah.
But it definitely made me uncomfortable when he's like, come on, Booker, people like you don't get to do that.
Right.
And it's like, gosh, did you have to really say it like that? So maybe they were doing a good job. I mean, I try to remember always that, it's a work.
Yeah.
And a lot of time, Booker T was compensated very well for that. And if he was comfortable with it, maybe I can be comfortable with it too, because it is at the end of the day, it's a work. But you do just hope that overall that, especially for all the characters and and all the storylines, they just don't fall back on lazy stereotypes. Just don't fall back on, that's why I was really I'm really like watching that whole Hit Row.
Yeah.
It's like, I get it, but can we just not make it so obvious that they're like rappers? Like, can we, I'm like, can we do a little something? Let's see what they do with it, but it was like, I'm always looking like, okay, what are they doing? But then again, I always say, hey, if that's really who he is, I think, if that's who these guys really are, go for it. But you always just hope that you don't see everyone boxed in as a stereotype. And that's always my hope when I watch the show, is that, that's why I like Keith Lee. He was different. He's different, Bianca, she, and that's why the Bianca Sasha match was another reason why it was so cool. It wasn't like, hey, the two girls from the hood are battling. It was, it was a hell of a match, and both of their personas aren't, playing off of stereotypes from where I sit, and that made it even better for me. And I think it felt like initially WWE was downplaying the historical context of it. Like, it's historical. I'm like, no, say why it's historical. Never mind, two black people in the main event, two black women headlining the show the first night. And that was, to me, that was still the best match of both nights.
I agree. And that one, you talk about how the historical importance wasn't getting the shine that it probably should have until kind of like that day almost. But because those weeks leading up to it, there was that whole stuff with Reginald getting involved. And I remember sitting there as a fan going, we don't need to do this. We can make this story so simple as the champion versus the challenger, the Royal Rumble winner, the upstart, the EST, and you could just make money like that. And there was this whole Reggie thing, and it was like, why?
Yeah, sometimes I think, to me, that's one of the handicaps or problems with WWE. Sometimes it's like, it's unnecessary. It's like, you don't need this. Like, we're enjoying the story. Don't mess it up. And I think AEW probably has a better grasp on that. Just, hey, let these guys tell the story. I mean, they've got their awards. I mean, even, that whole when Jericho fell through the was clearly cardboard.
Yeah.
It was like,
Oh man.
I was
Yeah.
like, oh, come on. I mean, but you don't want to hurt the guy for real, but it's
Right.
like, then again, there's never going to be another Mick Foley. We've learned over time that you just can't let guys hit their heads repeatedly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that was, but yeah, I mean, because I'm a fan of everything. I try to catch every promotion I can. Like I said, my girlfriend, where she lives, she can get Ring of Honor, so I'll watch
Okay,
Ring of Honor in her place. And I'll, my old cable provider, I was able to watch a lot more New Japan, so that's why I got to see the Painmaker and all that. And I'll watch I'll watch anyone. So in terms of wrestling, I just really enjoy the storytelling, the physicality. It's. As my mom used to tell me, they're just ballerinas that are buff. My dad.
When you break it down that simple, Mama, yeah, I get what you're
just
saying.
Buff ballerinas.
Right.
My mom loves Roman Reigns, and I've discovered a lot of my female friends love Roman Reigns.
I can understand that.
Yeah, I was just really annoying to hear my mom talk about, is Roman Reigns going to be on TV? I'm like, Mom, I'm not talking about this with you.
Right. Let's move along, Mama. Come on now.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your podcast. I think you talked about, like, this has been something that's been in the works for a while. Mm-hmm. So talk about just how it came about. What can people expect when they check it out?
This came about because everyone kept telling me I should do one.
Yeah.
But I didn't want, it's just me generally. I'm it's still early, so I'm going to start having guests eventually. But for me, it's just more of a way for me to talk about wrestling and vent about what I see. Not so much, it gets me away from having to be a news breaker or a news reporter like I do, normally with my other podcasts that are tied to work. So I just watch wrestling and talk about what I like, what I don't like, and then I'll go on Twitter and just say, hey, what are we talking about? And I'll get the ideas of what to talk about from Twitter. It's like, hey, what do you like? What do you what's going on? And then people will just, they'll reply, hey, what about this? What about this? What do you think about this? And I'm like, surprisingly, a couple of people actually care what I have to say. So I just try to keep it light. I don't usually go more than 20 minutes. It's just, it's a quick little, hey, I'll watch a pay-per-view and, hey, here's what I liked and what I didn't like, hey, Monday Night Raw is getting way too predictable. SmackDown's way better. Why did they release all these, these performers, who's headed where, will Impact be more watchable with fans, you just kind of go through a lot of it, a lot of different things, and whatever comes to mind. I usually do about once a week. Off season I'll maybe up it a little bit more. Try to get my girlfriend to come on there and talk wrestling with me. She's like, that means I have to watch it too. So I said maybe she needs to see Roman Reigns and then she'll watch it. Then she'll want to talk. But yeah, it's a lighthearted thing, nothing major. Just hey, 15, 20 minutes of, hey, what's going on? And hey, fellow fans, what do you like? What don't you like? What do you think about what's going on?
Yeah. Well, and I'm a fan of it. I'm one of those guys putting the Twitter responses to what are we talking about? What do you think? And I've appreciated your shout outs, and I think you're off to a good start.
You come up with some really good ideas.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. So, it's always fun. And I'm always surprised at who responds, because on Twitter, especially, I have this weird eclectic following of Kings NBA fans, wrestling fans, and then out of the blue, I'll have music people. So I have this really eclectic group. So if it's about music, in my Kings podcast, we talk Kings and hip hop. So
yeah.
So I get the music crowd there, and then I get the rest. It all merges into 20-something thousand people who have fun with me talking about whatever. Yeah.
It's good, man. It all works. But we're going to get wrapping up here pretty soon. But Jason, I'm a long-suffering Kings fan. I'm a random long-suffering Kings fan from Pittsburgh, and I've been a fan since '93. Okay.
How did you do that? I mean, order from Pittsburgh decide I want to root for that team.
Yeah, I can get into that. So I loved basketball. I still love basketball. So I grew up, we're the same age. I grew up in Celtics versus Lakers, right? So I became a Celtics fan, Larry Bird, Parrish, McHale, all that. And somewhere along the line, probably around that 93 time, I think the Celtics were kind of dropping off. And I remember saying, you know what, I should like a team on the West Coast too. I got an East Coast team in the Celtics. I should like a West Coast team. And the Kings had just drafted Bobby Hurley. And I hate Duke. I didn't like Duke, but Bobby Hurley was a winner. And I remember like looking at like a basketball magazine and going, they've got Mitch Richmond, they've got Wayman Tisdale, they got Lionel L. Train Simmons, Dwayne Coswell, who I was like, They got Bobby Hurley. I'm like, and I remember thinking to myself, I'm like, these guys can be good. Maybe not this year, but they could be good someday. And I want to jump on the wagon now so that one day when they get good, I can be like, yeah, I was in on it. So like I do have probably one of the first years when they switched from the red, white, and blue to the purple and black. I got a Mitch Richmond jersey. Okay. I don't have a C-Web jersey or Peja or Vlade. I that's how back I would go, Mitch Richmond. So yeah, and it just fell into it, and I think it only grew with the whole relocation saga. That they were going to leave, and it's this is the fans stepped up, and everything is
that
what it
was
is.
a very crazy time in Sacramento.
Yeah,
every road at that point, I was the only traveling member of the media full time.
Okay.
Every road game, I'd have to go sit through the visiting media asking about relocation. Literally every game, and it was like, could y'all let me get my stuff done first? Because I don't have, and the way the newspaper had it set up was, they didn't want me writing about relocation. That wasn't my quote job. My job was strictly the games, and they had a whole relocation. Yeah, it was tough on me because I remember at one point some fans on Twitter got mad at me for saying that I wasn't doing my job and I was uninformed, because I wasn't writing relocation stuff and I wasn't giving them that. I was like, I've got a whole team doing. I said, second, they told me not to do it. Like I was explicitly told that is not we've got these guys over here who handle all that stuff. It was a tough time. I figured maybe that fan was just mad and took it out on me. I was like, what did I do? So yeah, but it was that was a crazy time because really, literally no one knew what was going to happen. Like the players didn't know. The one thing I was certain was they weren't going to be in Anaheim.
Okay.
I was certain.
That was a big one. Yeah.
I said there was no way in the world the Lakers and Clippers allow them to be in Anaheim. I said that's
share
not
that space.
I told everyone I'm not worried about Anaheim. I thought Seattle was going to happen. Yeah. And I was prepared to get ready to go back to covering the NFL.
Yeah. It's crazy how it all turned out. The new arena, the team stayed. And unfortunately, it hasn't been a whole lot of good since then. So my question to you, will the Kings ever be good again? Now, my serious question is, do you feel they're trending in the right direction? Is there hope? I
actually think they are. I think they're in the minority, but I actually think they are. I think right now, the problem that a lot of people in the media and fans have is that they kind of view it in this big, it's been 15 years. But it's like, it's been 15 years, yeah, but it's been X amount of years with this ownership group. It's been 2 years with this coach. It's been less than a year with this GM. So, I mean, I get the whole, you start piling up all the draft mistakes and, even on my basketball podcast, I talk about lately just how they bought so many drafts, just like decisions with personnel. I'll watch a playoff game and be like, wow, I forgot Steph Curry was a King.
Yeah.
And I'll revisit why in the world did a guy who seemed to make perfect sense for them never work out in Sacramento? Like, why didn't they keep him? You go back and look at all these draft picks and the things they've messed up on, and you say, I understand how you can take it as, hey, this is a big thing, and I get a lot of the fans don't like Luke Walton. Well, actually, in some ways I don't get it because it's like, he's not Phil Jackson, but he also doesn't have the 96 Bulls roster, And so, I mean, to me, I tend to take it as a collective thing where I say, well, this isn't working, this isn't working, this isn't working. So, of course, this part doesn't work. of course, the on-court, the on-court product isn't going to be better if the roster is worse than it was the previous year. So I do believe that, Tyrese Halliburton will be better next year. I think De'Aaron can still get better. I think De'Aaron knows he can still get better. Right now he's kind of a thing. When he's great, but when he's bad, it's like, oh God, like he's still trying to find that, okay, when I'm not getting 25 points, 28, I can still get you 23 and 7 assists. He'll have, like, he had a game this year where he shot 5 of 20. It's like he went from way up here all the way. It's like, whoa, you can't be that that up and down. I mean, he even acknowledged that. So I think between that, I think Harrison Barnes is a solid piece. I think the guys they got at the trade deadline will help fill out the roster.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it sucks to say, but you got to kind of wait this out and, like, give them another year, And if it's going to be a situation where you get a top 10 situation to get to the play in, I think they can get in the top 10. I mean, all things considered, they almost got in this year.
They did. Yeah.
Even with 2 9-game losing streaks and dropping 9 of 11 at one point, they still almost got in.
Right.
So, you eliminate, turn those 2 9 games, even if those are like 6-game losing streaks, you're in the play-in.
Right.
And you might be 8.
Yeah.
8, so which gives you 2 cracks at getting in. So I think they're going the right direction. Like I said, I'm in the minority. I know. Maybe, it's weird being the guy from LA who's Mr. Optimist about the Kings because everyone assumes I hate the Kings. But I really don't, but I think that I think that they're going the right way. I mean, it may not happen quickly, but I think it's going that way. But I kind of get it too, though, because every time I've thought that, they've blown it up for some weird reason. I thought they were on the right way with Michael Malone. They fired Malone. I thought the year they traded DeMarcus, they were a game and a half out the playoffs when they traded DeMarcus, or a game and a half or 2.5, something like that. They were right there,
yeah.
And they traded him even the year before that during the George Karl season. And I think I talked to some people later on. They said the mistake they made was they should have fired George. If they fired those guys, were a game and a half out the playoffs. They didn't fire George. Those guys just said, okay, we give up. So, I mean, It's just like I get kind of the angst and fear of Kings fans, but in my mind, I'm thinking 2022 will be the year they crack the top 10. That's my prediction. I'm not saying they're going to, like, win the play-in and get in, but I think they'll be in the top 10 next year. And, and then from there, who knows what can happen, but I don't think it's impossible. Just, as long as the guys you have get better. And now, and also if this off season, you make some moves to continue to improve the roster. Last year, they didn't get better. They didn't do anything. It's like they kind of just sat around on, I get it, new GM, don't want to tie up no money. But yeah, I think if they continue to take positive steps, this thing, just the law of averages says you can't be this bad this long. You got to get luck, because even when they moved up in the draft, they moved up in the draft twice. And one guy ended up being Fox, and they get, the other guy ended up being Bagley, maybe they move up again and they get the pick right this time, I don't mean, I'm not trying to, hate on Bagley, but I mean, I know it must be tough for Kings fans to see Luka in the playoffs, Trey in the playoffs, and then you got Bagley, who's just been really unlucky with the injuries.
Yeah. I appreciate the optimism. And I that was like a little pep talk for my fandom just now.
Dude, it's weird because I'm usually the guy who's like, oh, this is terrible. I'm like, I don't think this is going to be, I thought even in Jaeger's last year, they were trending the right direction. But I thought that year was kind of a mirage.
Okay.
I thought, because people forget that year. Remember, LeBron gets hurt. Jimmy Butler destroys Minnesota that year with his I want out. I said, if things go the way, if LeBron doesn't get hurt, Jimmy Butler doesn't do what he does, they're probably the 11th, 12th team in the West, probably.
Yeah.
But I still thought that was a positive step. I think where they messed up was a lot of the players figured, okay, we won 39 games. We'll win 45 next season. No big deal. They come out, they go 0-5. I'm like, like a team, it was like, did you guys really think you were good already? And they really did. And until and I think with some more improved leadership, maybe you don't come out next season with that saying, you don't have any assumptions. So, and then maybe they'll play defense again.
That is part of the game. They've been lacking. They've been, for me, they're the the basketball equivalent of the Charlie Brown's going to kick the football and Lucy pulls it away. And like, that's my Kings fandom, that like, right when they get like that 5-game winning streak. And I'm like, hey, maybe they're going to get good. They've got maybe the Spurs at home. They could win. And then they lose. Like, and that happens every single time. And
yeah, just when you
get
think,
sucked
okay,
in.
And I feel bad for fans. I'm like, no, this is,
every time.
They won 6 or 7, they're above 500. I'm like, they just beat the Clippers in LA. I mean, De'Aaron's, going by Kawhi Leonard and scoring. We feel great. We're above 500. Lose 9 in a row.
Right, right. Every time.
We right the ship. We figure it out. We're doing good. Hey, we won 7 of 8. We're feeling great. We can't certainly lose 9 in a row again. Yes, we can.
So true.
And some of the ways they lose is just like, what am I watching?
Yeah.
Like the perfect storm of things that can go wrong for sometimes will go wrong and do go wrong. So yeah, I feel for Kings fans more than they realize, because I'm like, you guys can turn it off. I got to sit there and keep watching it. Like they had the game where they got beat up by Detroit, and like Corey Joseph came back as the second coming of Isaiah.
That's right. Yes.
I said, this is terrible. I said, I want to go home. I go to work for this. I'm like, I'm not even a Kings fan, and I'm insulted by this effort.
Well, now I got another reason to root for them, because I'm hoping that they can have some playoff fun for you for covering. Now I'm feeling your pain.
I feel like I've earned the right,
man. You have.
I've earned the right to see some playoff basketball.
100%. All right. Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed for better days in the 21-22 season. Mm-hmm. Guys, check out Yes, I'm Watching Wrestling wherever you listen to podcasts with my guy here, Jason Jones. You can follow Jason on Twitter. It's at Mr._Jason Jones. Jason, do you want to plug, anything else? I know the other podcast you mentioned. Anything else you want to tell people about?
Yeah.
Feel free.
Yeah, if you're a Kings fan and you don't know, I have the Ruler of the Court podcast. Basketball and hip hop. I also have with The Athletic, the Culture Calculus, which is more like non-sports things. We had an episode about veganism. We talked about the WNBA. We'll talk about the NFL and race norming. We've talked about, we have some great guests on there. We had Kate Fagan on there not too long ago, talking about the book she wrote about her dad who had ALS. So we have a nice variety of things on there. So yeah, I'm all over the place right now. So
it's awesome.
And then if you want to follow me on Instagram, it's Mr. Jones LBC, which is really not work related, but it's got I have a ton of jokes on there. So very, very some not safe for work stuff, but I keep it not safe for work, but not like fireable. So I walk the fine line of fun without, being canceled.
All right. Well, that's I think a way to live right now in 2021. So keep doing what you're doing. Jason Jones, thank you so much. Guys, thanks for checking out this That Wrestling Podcast Extra. Please make sure, if you haven't yet, follow our show on Twitter at thatwrestlepod. You can also find me at TWP Brian. That's BRIAN. We've got merch too. Get your That Wrestling Podcast merch at whatamaneuver.net. And thanks so much for checking out That Wrestling Podcast Extra. Enjoy wrestling, everybody.
Thanks for listening. Follow That WrestlePod on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube.
1, 2, 3, that's it!